All right, how's everyone out there? Give me 1 second. I got it over to Facebook. I'm getting quicker getting it over to Facebook. But I still have to get in there and click these buttons. Pisses me off. Anyways, we're on Facebook. Let's tape this for TikTok too. I don't know how much of this TikTok's going to get. So I'm going to move fast today. So let's start out with howdy, everybody. Bob's back. Biker News Canada. I'm live at 8. I'm going to try to be live at 8. I don't have anyone to interview this week either, people. So if you got a club or if you're doing an event and it's coming up soon, you want to get it out there, spread the word, contact me on any direct messages, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever the hell. I get them all. The message will get to me. So contact me if you're interested in doing an interview Thursday, which is what, tomorrow, right? At 8 p.m. I send you a link. We talk for about an hour and then it's over. I'd like to talk to a couple groups out there that I want to find out if they're clubs or if they're going to be pop-up clubs or disappear clubs. One's called the Defiant Few. I think you're out there in Saskatchewan. I think you might be in a couple other places. And one's called the Longhorns from Mississauga. So you guys both posted on my Facebook Biker News Canada group on Facebook. And geez, you guys got some flack for your posts. So if you want to come up there and clear the air, contact me. All right, I got Lulu and I got JR in the chat. Thanks, guys, for dropping in today. Don't forget, everyone, if you're around in the 2000s, actually, this video is going to talk about this today. The big patchover, they call it. One Night at the Playpen. It's on Amazon. Or again, contact me on any social media direct message, and I'll get a signed copy to you. Good book. It's about my time in one of the big motorcycle clubs, and names are changed for obvious reasons, but it's out there. So go check it out. Okay, so Squeaks No Longhorns. Okay, cool. I think they got some flack when they did some posting. So the first one I want to talk about, I got two videos I want to talk about today. So the first one, we're going back to the choice, the Satan's Choice stuff. So, I did the interview with Harley and all that, and we talked. I think that we got along okay. And him and I know obviously a few of the same people, the biker group in Ontario being what it is. I'm a bit older than him, so I'm a generation or so before him. But I know a lot of the same people he knows, etc. But anyways, so he went up to another town and he was going to patch in some dudes, I don't know if it was all of the Rock Machine or some of the Rock Machine from a certain place. And I'm going to have to get everyone to hold on. No, man, I'm live on fucking YouTube. Fuck out of here. So anyways, he patched in a few guys from the Rock Machine. And this one guy, he must have, and he right away gets a hold of Sosa Ghost, sorry. And he does a goddamn interview with him. So here's some of the interview. So they go back to talking about, Harley's dad and all that and the choice and how they came up to be, etc. And done with the AI, which I hate. So anyways, where is this guy? I'm trying to get his face. Because between posting up this video and people seeing it, maybe this is the real video about Harley. I don't think so. So from Hastings. It's from Hastings, Ontario. So anyways, by the time the guys anyways, the long and short of it is the guy didn't receive his Satan's Choice patch. He had it long enough to do that video. So and he's out again. So how about that? So that was one thing I wanted to talk about. I thought that was interesting because people are in such a big old hurry to get famous, aren't they? And this one. So the Ontario Biker War, Hell's Angels grip on Canada's largest province. So these guys, I take it they're from the States, I would imagine. They looked at Wikipedia for a bit. And Harley, sorry about putting that on the back of my TikTok. It was there for a green screen, so I used it.
And two people fighting for their lives after police say 7 people
so they go through
at the turn of the millennium.
The 90s,
something deadly was brewing in Ontario. The Hells Angels were coming, and they weren't asking permission. From 1999 to 2002, Canada's largest province became a battleground. The Angels moved in with brutal force, determined to crush anyone who stood in their way. Their targets, the outlaws, the loners, and what remained of the rock machine. Cities like London, Hamilton, and Toronto were about to be dragged into chaos. London, Ontario became ground zero. This quiet city suddenly found itself at the heart of a biker war that would reshape the province's underworld forever. Clubhouses burned. Streets turned into shooting galleries. Residents woke up to find organized crime's most dangerous names living next door. The breaking point came during what should have been a simple motorcycle show, just bike enthusiasts gathering to admire machines. Instead, it nearly became a massacre. Large numbers of Hells Angels rolled in, facing off against rival outlaws and banditos. Weapons were drawn. Tensions exploded. For those terrifying minutes, the city held its breath, waiting for bloodshed. Only an extraordinary police presence kept disaster at bay. That showdown captured exactly what Ontario was facing, a province on edge.
Have you ever pushed things back to tomorrow just because you were too tired? It means you're overworking, and now there's an affordable...
Where every gathering, every street corner, and every clubhouse could ignite into open warfare. Setting the stage, Ontario before 1999. To understand how the Ontario biker war erupted, you first have to look at who controlled the province before the Angels ever set foot there. For decades, the Outlaws Motorcycle Club was the dominant outlaw biker presence in Ontario. They were well established in cities like London, Windsor, and Hamilton, and their influence stretched far beyond motorcycles. The Outlaws built a reputation as the gatekeepers of Ontario's drug markets, especially in southern regions close to the U.S. border. Alongside them stood Satan's Choice, a Canadian-born club that had once been one of the country's strongest outlaw biker organizations. By the 1970s and 1980s, Satan's Choice maintained an uneasy but practical alliance with the Outlaws. The two groups didn't always see eye to eye, but they shared a common interest, keeping out the Hells Angels, who had already proven how ruthless they could be in Quebec. Meanwhile, in Quebec, the Angels had fought a bloody struggle known as the First Biker War, from 1977 to 1984, crushing the Popeyes and absorbing rivals to secure dominance. By the end of the 1980s, the Hells Angels had near total control in that province, with their drug operations growing into multi-million-dollar businesses. Their leader in Quebec, Walter Stadnik, began looking westward. Ontario, with its size, wealth, and major cities, was the natural next prize. This looming expansion created quiet but growing tension. The Outlaws and Satan's Choice knew that once the Angels crossed into Ontario, a confrontation would be inevitable. But instead of open war right away, there was a period of maneuvering. The Angels built relationships with smaller biker gangs and tested the waters through low-level operations. At the same time, the Outlaws strengthened their ties with local allies, trying to reinforce their position before the storm. By the mid-1990s, Ontario's biker scene was fragile. Cautious truces held, but mistrust ran deep. Everyone knew the Angels were preparing to move in, and everyone else was deciding whether to resist them or join them. That sense of unease set the stage for what was coming.
I joined the club.
Once the Angels finally made their push in the late 1990s, Ontario's under 1999, patchovers ignite chaos. By the late 1990s, the storm everyone feared finally arrived. The man behind it was Walter Stadnik, one of the most influential Hells Angels in Canada. Nicknamed Nerdjit, Stadnik had risen through the ranks in Quebec during the bloody biker wars there. He was strategic, calculating, and had a clear vision. Expand the Angels from Quebec into Ontario and cement the club as Canada's dominant biker force. Stadnik's plan was both simple and devastatingly effective. Instead of waging an all-out war against every rival club in Ontario, he offered them a deal known as patch for patch. The offer was straightforward. Local biker clubs could keep their territory, their members, and even their businesses, but only if they abandoned their old colors and put on the Hells Angels Death Head patch. In return, they would gain international connections, protection, and the prestige of being part of the most feared biker brand in the world. The gamble worked. In December 2000, one of the largest mass patchovers in biker history took place. Overnight, Ontario's landscape flipped. Entire clubs, including Satan's Choice, Lobos, Last Chance, Paradise Riders, and others, switched allegiance. In total, the Angels gained 13 new Ontario chapters in a single stroke.
And again, not all
what had once been a patchwork of rival biker groups was suddenly unified under the red and white banner of the Hells Angels. For the Outlaws, who had spent decades as Ontario's top biker club, this was nothing less than a declaration of war. Their long-standing ally, Satan's Choice, had betrayed them by joining their most dangerous rival. Years of cautious balance collapsed in an instant, and tensions skyrocketed in cities across the province. The effects were felt most sharply in London, Ontario, where the Angels established a presence in direct confrontation with existing Outlaws territory. In Hamilton, old alliances crumbled as the balance of power tilted toward the Angels. Even in Toronto, a city already riddled with organized crime, the sudden rise of so many Hells Angels chapters created immediate friction with existing underworld players. Stadnick's patch-for-patch strategy had achieved in one winter what years of violence might not have accomplished. The Hells Angels were now the largest outlaw motorcycle presence in Ontario. But this expansion also unleashed chaos. Old grudges turned into street-level fights, firebombings and ambushes. Clubhouses that once stood as neighborhood landmarks became fortresses.
Yeah, see, so some of the things I wanted to clear up. See, that's a Mongol on the left there. So that's a Mongol patch. But anyway, some of the things I wanted to clear up was, the Choice and the Outlaws were never allies. They coexisted with a mutual respect, and one club had one area, the other club had their cities, and everyone coexisted. They were never allies
and targets.
Ever.
By the start of 2001, it was clear the biker map of Ontario had been redrawn. The Hells Angels had gone from outsiders to the dominant force, but that dominance came at a cost. Everywhere they planted their colors, confrontation followed, and Ontario was about to see just how bloody the consequences would be.
Here's the good news. We can make the next year better for you. If you're from Canada and...
Now they're going to talk about shit that's not true. So let's do this part.
If there was one city that captured the intensity of Ontario's biker war, it was London. When the Hells Angels officially expanded into the province, they didn't just choose London.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this video, Rebecca, because the video we're watching is not accurate. So I just wanted to point out.
They planted themselves in direct opposition to existing Outlaws territory. The rivalry between the two clubs turned the city into a powder keg, with rival clubhouses operating in the same.
So this is true. So the Angels opened a clubhouse right around the corner from the Outlaws, like literally right around the corner.
The rivalry didn't stay quiet for long. By the summer of 2001, tensions turned violent. Outlaws' properties in the region came under attack, with firebombings targeting clubhouses and.
So that's totally wrong. No Outlaws clubhouse got firebombed by any other club. They don't do that in Ontario. See, that's the thing. They don't know a bunch about Canadian bikers. And that's exactly why I'm doing this video, because they made it up. They did this and that. Yeah, Egerton Street was the one in London. Exactly. The one in London was the Outlaw Clubhouse. And then when the Angels first got to London, right around the corner on York Street, kind of right around Rectory, they rented that Quadston Hut. I think it's a surf place now. And that was their first clubhouse. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. They got burnt in Quebec. Shit happened in Quebec. Anyways, let's see what else. This is so full of bullshit.
Associated businesses. The attack sent a message. No property tied to the Outlaws was safe. Investigators quickly suspected biker involvement, though proving who ordered the violence was difficult. Violence escalated throughout 2001 and into 2002.
Geez, that thing at that casino gave them so much footage for making videos, didn't it? Always happens. Yeah, Quebec. Well, and now Quebec is pretty quiet, except for, from what I'm left to understand, the eastern provinces around Quebec City and that. There was some friction with those street gangs, right? But apparently it's either quieter or it's stopped for the time being.
2. Gunfights erupted in residential areas, with automatic weapons fire echoing through neighborhoods where families lived.
Now that's a straight out lie. That's a straight out lie. There was no gunfights in no neighborhoods. We could never. Thanks, Kurt. I appreciate that, bro. And you know what? I still live by that code up until a few years ago myself. I wasn't in a big hurry to meet somebody who was a supporter or a member. I don't know why. I've been out of the club for fucking 25 years. Yeah, there's the FU crew. They were kind of came from us, right? And the Kips crew, yeah. Yeah, the Mongols and the Angels in California. I think they're still at it.
Cars were riddled with bullets,
Look at this.
and nearby houses shook from the sound of combat. Miraculously, civilians were largely spared, but the violence left communities terrified and proved that London had become the epicenter of Canada's newest biker battleground. All of this violence built toward a flashpoint in early 2002. A motorcycle show, a public event meant to celebrate bikes and culture, nearly turned into a massacre. Large numbers of Hell's Angels arrived, facing off against rival outlaws and banditos. Tensions erupted, and for a few moments, it looked like London would see blood spilled on the floor of a public venue. It was only the presence of heavily armed police.
Yeah, so a whole bunch of the red and whites came, and a whole bunch of the outlaws were already there. Because the bike show is, literally right around the corner from the Outlaw Clubhouse. And if I'm not mistaken, I might have had my bike in the show at that year. So there's a big Mexican standoff in the middle of the hall where the bike show was. And the bike show was actually ran by a member of the HA who came by way of Satan's Choice. He was a choice guy before, old guy named Larry. And after that, they would not let Larry have any more licenses for any bike shows, man. That killed the London Bike Show, that one event, and nobody threw a punch.
Police officers that kept disaster from striking. Officers flooded the venue, separated the clubs, and forced both sides out before violence could erupt. Still, the near battle left the public shaken. Even family events were now vulnerable to biker intimidation. By early 2002, Ontario's biker war wasn't just a criminal feud. It was a fight spilling into city streets, small towns, and public venues. And as the Angels pushed harder, law enforcement knew it couldn't stand by much longer. Law enforcement, response, and mass arrests. By 2002, the clashes between Ontario's biker clubs were spiraling out of control, and public pressure for action had reached a breaking point.
That's the one part that I never understood. They arrested all the members of
politicians,
one club and left the other club unscathed. I never understood that.
Police and communities demanded intervention, and the Ontario Provincial Police answered with some of the most ambitious operations the province had ever seen. In September 2002,
are you a Canadian senior who doesn't have a funeral cover?
Can you guys hear it still? Because I just muted it until we skip it. Hey, Newfoundland, Throttling Dirt, good to see you, brother. I'm doing a correction/reaction video to some guys from the States who made a video about the biker war in Ontario that never happened, never existed. But, they're always trying to get more clicks. I guess that's what we're all after, right?
Coordinated raids under the banners of Project Retire,
So Project Retire, I got caught up in.
Project Amigo, and Project Summertime. These were not routine busts. They were sweeping, intelligence-driven crackdowns that struck directly at the heart of the outlaw.
But Project Retire was because we had a snitch in our club. And so they took out all the leaders of all the chapters across Ontario. And a good amount of the members too, but they didn't, So that was when they arrested most of the outlaws in 2002. I was arrested in that. It cost me my house. It cost me all my money. It cost me my bike. It cost me fucking everything.
Outlaws Motorcycle Club. Over the course of a single campaign, police arrested dozens of full-patch Outlaws members across Ontario. Alongside the arrests, officers seized firearms, large stashes of narcotics, and significant properties tied to the club's operations. The scale of the takedowns sent shockwaves through the biker underworld. For decades, The Outlaws had been Ontario's strongest club, the gatekeepers who kept rival biker gangs in check. But suddenly, with many of their leaders and members in custody, their structure was shattered. Their clubhouses, symbols of defiance, were raided and in some cases shut down entirely.
They seized Windsor, London, Woodstock, St. Catharines, Toronto. They seized 5 clubhouses. And the cops knocked most of those clubhouses down. They knocked down the one in London, the one in Windsor mysteriously burnt in the night. The one in Woodstock was a rental, so it went back to its owner. And I don't know what happened to St. Catharines. The one in Toronto, they knocked down as well. So what they did is they took possession of the clubhouses, and then they turned off all the utilities and they held them. Yeah, that is true, JR. That's why I wanted to do this video. I caught it last night. I thought, you know what, I'll do a reaction on that one tomorrow. It's very, very inaccurate, Squeaks. Yes, he was. Yes. All right, let's get back into this.
While the Outlaws reeled from the crackdowns, the Hells Angels seized the moment. Their recent mass patchover had already given them unmatched numbers, but now their primary rival was crippled. In cities like London, Hamilton, and Toronto, the Angels consolidated territory. Smaller biker groups, realizing the Outlaws could no longer protect them, leaned toward the Angels for survival. Law enforcement had intended to weaken biker crime in general, but the effect was uneven. The Outlaws lost the capacity to recover, while the Angels emerged stronger than ever.
Now, just so everybody knows, the Outlaws are still alive and well in Canada. Oh, yeah, and it was a different Marty we were talking about, Rebecca. It was a different guy. It was a London guy. I know exactly, yeah. I don't know about that one, Kurt, that question there. I not that I ever heard, but fuck, it wouldn't surprise me, man. Yeah, you're thinking about the guy in Quebec. He's made it into all those original gangster guy. He loves doing he's from the States and he loves doing shows on the Montreal Hells Angels. Like he knows them as friends almost. Hey, thanks, Aggressive Fish Lover. Thank you. I appreciate it, bro. Yeah, I see that. Looks like you're jamming up the letters, man.
By late 2002, Ontario's biker map was redrawn once again. The Outlaws were in disarray, and the Hells Angels stood as the undisputed rulers of the province's motorcycle underworld. The irony wasn't lost on observers. Police pressure had crippled one side, but it also cleared the path for the Angels to dominate without meaningful opposition. Ontario had entered a new era, less open violence on the streets, but a deeper entrenchment of the Hells Angels in organized crime. Consolidation and ongoing law enforcement pressure. With the Outlaws crippled by police raids, the Hells Angels didn't just survive in Ontario, they thrived. By the mid-2000s, they had grown into the most dominant organized crime network in the province.
That's one thing for sure. If you believe what they say on that Project Hobart when they busted up the alleged Hells Angel fucking gambling thing, they thrived. There's no question about they thrived.
Their strongest grip came in Northern Ontario,
Thanks,
where competition was thin. Investigators later confirmed that the Angels had significant control of drug trafficking there, dictating both distribution networks and territorial boundaries. Profits were enormous, with narcotics flowing steadily across provincial lines and into local communities.
In the Greater Toronto area,
once upon a time you were playing games just for...
Well, that was weird. The voice changed on the AI robot. Weird, eh? Hey, DJ, thanks for watching, brother. I appreciate that. No, this is the Ontario of AI in Wikipedia. That's what this is.
The Angels were still powerful, but they faced competition from other organized crime groups, including established mafia families and independent trafficking networks. As a result, drug markets remained competitive, though the Angels maintained a strong presence throughout the region. Law enforcement knew that allowing the Angels to consolidate further would be disastrous, so they continued building long-term investigations. One of the most significant came in 2006, when the Ontario Provincial Police launched Project Tandem. This was a comprehensive operation that took months to develop. Police used surveillance, financial tracking, and cooperating witnesses to gather evidence on drug trafficking and weapons deals. The results were substantial. In coordinated raids, police arrested 27 people, many of them full-patch Hells Angels or close associates. They seized large quantities of cocaine, marijuana, firearms, and cash. Authorities described Project Tandem as one of the most successful strikes against organized crime in Ontario since the biker war began.
I had a feeling that was the one in Niagara region, and they had a snitch in their chapter too. I don't even think he was in the Niagara chapter. He was a snitch in the club, though. The snitch that took down all the outlaws wasn't in the London chapter either. And there's no biker war in Ontario, and there never has been one. Well, he portrayed himself as pretty scary, bro. He was scary when he knew he had backup.
But even as bikers were prosecuted and sentenced, one reality remained. The Angels had embedded themselves deeply into Ontario's criminal economy. Raids disrupted operations, but they didn't erase the club's influence. For every chapter affected by arrests, others adapted and continued operating, keeping the...
That one picture looked like the London, Ontario clubhouse, didn't it? Where was that? That was weird.
The Angels had embedded themselves deeply into Ontario's criminal economy. Raids disrupted operations, but they didn't erase the club's influence.
That one. No, that's not it. That's a 3-story building.
For every chapter affected by arrests, others adapted and continued operating, keeping the Angels firmly in place as the province's most entrenched outlaw motorcycle club. The pattern established a new equilibrium. The Hells Angels remained dominant, but under constant surveillance and periodic disruption by law enforcement operations designed to prevent them from operating with complete impunity. Renewed tensions and modern conflicts. Even after the major crackdowns of the 2000s, Ontario never fully escaped biker violence. The Hells Angels remained the dominant force, but smaller groups and emerging rivals kept looking for openings, and old rivalries occasionally reignited. Periodic flare-ups continued to test law enforcement's ability to maintain control. Street gangs with connections to surviving outlaws chapters sometimes pushed into drug markets that the Hells Angels considered their territory. What typically started as
thanks for dropping in, Squeaks. Much appreciated.
Territorial disputes would escalate into arsons, drive-by shootings, and targeted violence. Homes and businesses linked to rival groups would be attacked, and gunfire would rattle neighborhoods that had already lived through the chaos of the early 2000s. These incidents followed a familiar pattern: initial provocations, rapid escalation, and then concentrated police efforts to contain the violence before it...
It's getting boring now. I just wanted to run through. They got all the history wrong. They always do. Now, I don't blame them for flashing pictures from wherever they can find them. Yeah, but the St. Catharines Clubhouse wasn't painted that color, and it was only 2 stories as well, yeah. So a bunch of you people have been around. And yeah, Gordy, last time I knew, Gordy was living in a member's house. I was in jail, and he was either a supporter or he was helping get the Black Pistons going here in London. And the whole thing is American not even skating clubs. Yeah. But, you know, the story that they tried to get, there's no way to put too much color into that story. Again, my book has got the real way of how it went down. There was one incident where the lead was in the air in London, 100%, but and nobody got put in the grave. There's another video out there that they're talking about the shooting at the strip club in London, and that's all in my book because I was all involved in all that. I was the guy that wanted to be a witness for the Crown, all sorts of crazy shit for that one. I went to England for almost a year, and the guys who did it walked on the beef, so whatever. It worked out for them. As far as I know, they're free men out on the street. They could be watching this right now for all I know. And they tried to tie that into this whole thing about the Angels coming over in 2000, which none of those things were even remotely connected. And that was just a thing that happened one night. It shouldn't have happened, but it happened. So it's kind of part of the life. You want to get in the bad guy life. Sometimes bad things happen. But yeah, so what do we got for their main takeaways from today? Americans shouldn't do stories on Canadian crime because they don't know the fuck they're talking about. And That guy who ran over and did a video on Sosagosa's channel is not in the Satan's Choice. Harley's got a big video explaining that right down to the nuts and bolts of it. So if you want to, go follow Harley G or Harley Gwendon. He's got his own Facebook stuff going on. He drops videos all the time. I still really enjoyed my interview with him. It was fun. Yeah, get the book, Kurt. Just get me in DMs on one of these. Same with you, BBB. Get me on DMs, Facebook DMs or any of that stuff. And I'll tell you how to send me the money and I'll get your address and I'll send you up a signed copy of the book. I hope you just listen to all that, BBB. So you can, like I say, get a hold of me on any DM and we'll sort it out and I'll send you a signed copy. I just got a new shipment. I got tons of them. So I just got a new box in from Amazon, or you can get them on Amazon. Just got to type in One Night at the Playpen in the Amazon search and the book comes right up. 57 clubs in QC are changing overnight since it's been war. Holy moly, eh? But that's the thing. That's why I want to start talking to a couple of these smaller clubs. The ones I mentioned at the start of the video, because obviously there's a difference between an MC and a 1% MC, right? So it seems to me like we get a lot more MCs nowadays in Canada, which, to be honest with you, might not be a bad thing, right? As long as they're all riding and doing MC stuff, then it shouldn't really affect anyone else's life. You know what I'm saying? Harley seems like real deal. I've seen a lot of going down the first time. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them guys and stuff. He says he's got a bunch of chapters already lined up, and he's already the second largest club in Canada. So they haven't had their big, thing. Maybe they're not going to have a big thing. Maybe they're just going to be quiet and just put a house in this city and a house in that city. I don't know. Like, we talked and we stayed a little bit in contact and stuff on Messenger. But, I can't say we're best bros or anything. We'll see what happens. Yeah, and in the biker war in Quebec, it kind of wrapped up in about 2001. And like I say, the big way that they wrapped up that war was to patch in most of the Rock Machine. I know the one guy from the Rock Machine. He spent over a year coming to Ontario, and he would come to our clubhouse, specifically in London. And he hung out with us all the time. And I was kind of, in a roundabout way, running the strip joint. I'd always have a girl for him. He'd get himself sorted out with a girl, and he'd have such a good time and this and that. And he was a Rock Machine. He came with his bodyguard. He's a great big dude. He's not in anymore. He's in the papers. He's famous. And he ended up being a Hell's Angel, right? He was at that bike show wearing a Hell's Angel patch. I was like, what happened there, man? So exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Rebecca. They might do it nice and quiet, right? Okay, Kurt, thanks for dropping in. And thanks everyone for dropping in. 26 people. Make sure y'all hit the like button, please. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. And I'll be back. I like doing these videos too once in a while. We'll get into the meat and bones. I can't tell out all the secrets, but shit that happened 25 years ago, it's already been in the newspapers, isn't what I consider a secret. So there you have it. So you get the vision of one guy who was actually there and lived it. And again, I'm not going to concentrate all my shows on that. Yeah, it's funny. Eh? The whole scene in Ontario changed a lot after all that happened. And to be honest with you, after we got arrested and all that stuff, and I lost all my shit when I was sitting in jail, and I only sat for a fucking year, you know what I mean? That's when I decided I didn't want to be in a motorcycle club anymore. It wasn't for me, I had the wife, she lost the house. I had our little girl who's now 24 and lives with me still. And, I didn't feel it for the club anymore. So I split, man. I just said that was good for me. You weren't even old enough to be on. Yeah. You see how questions. I love London. Yeah, man. Thanks, Kurt. Okay. So that's it, guys. I want to thank everyone again who dropped in. I appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch my videos. They're up there. They stay on the channel after it's done. So if you want to talk to somebody and say, hey, check this one out, feel free. If you're a club who hasn't come up for an interview, I'm taking clubs, 1% clubs, writing clubs, MCs that are not 1% clubs. If you want to get up here and we'll talk about your club and what you do, we're not going to shit talk anyone else. It's not what I have my platform for, but we'll talk about you and what you guys do. If you're interested, hit me up. I'm more than willing to meet you and we'll take it from there. All right. Till tomorrow. Thanks everyone for watching. And I hope Smith Falls, the rain stayed away. It looks like you guys had another exceptional bike night tonight. Well done up there in Smith Falls. All right. Thanks, JR. Good night, guys. See you tomorrow. Love and respect.